Well, Washington State has been identified by the media as a blue state.
Washington is as blue as it is because it's been neglected.
And the Democrats have just run a better ground game. They've worked together better, and they've won elections.
3 weeks before the election, I was telling somebody, hey, they've got a plan in Washington State. It's really going to be interesting to see how that turns out. And they just laughed and said, please, Washington State, there's no way you're going to make a difference there.
Like the waters of Puget Sound, Washington State is awash in deep blue politics. Liberal policies have dominated the state for decades. But below its blue surface, a red current of conservatism is rising to the top.
Washington State is an area where there's a lot of entrepreneurs located. A lot of businesses start here. Costco, Boeing, of course, Microsoft, Amazon. It just seems like the people here are kind of entrepreneurial in a sense, whether it's business or politics. A lot of the major political movements actually started right here in Washington State. Most recent example was the very first Tea Party rally in the nation occurred right here in downtown Seattle.
This is about freedom, individual liberty, and the government getting out of our lives.
We had hundreds of people turn out in what we call liberal Seattle, turn out in force to stand against the stimulus packages.
The Tea Party's message of fiscal responsibility began to resonate with voters. In 2010, Washingtonians voted over 60% in favor of fiscally conservative issues on the ballot. But Washington State continues to overflow with ever-increasing taxes and regulations.
The voters in almost every legislative district, 65 to 70% of those voters said, no, we do not want an income tax. That same day, further down the ballot, they would vote for the liberal pro-income tax legislator.
And that's one of the things that the people in the Tea Party groups in Washington State were trying to point out is, you know, you're voting for these particular candidates, but those candidates, when they get in office, are actually voting against the way you want them to vote on the tax initiatives.
If the citizens of Washington State voted conservatively on fiscal issues, why were Republicans not being elected to these influential seats?
Our side has never had the wherewithal or courage or resources to coalesce the stakeholders.
Local activists began to see an opportunity for conservatives to make a difference in the Washington State legislature.
We've read the blueprint about what happened in Colorado. Colorado went from a Republican, conservative-dominated state to a liberal Democrat-dominated state because folks on the center-left side of the political spectrum set aside their differences and worked together for an outcome. We want to do it here, and that's how this conversation started for the 2012 election.
The local patriots knew the challenge that lay ahead. Was it possible that a state like Washington could actually turn from blue to red? In order to be successful, they would need more than financial resources. They would need a strong ground game.
We set out to build a ground game, build an infrastructure capable of reaching voters through direct voter contact.
So, the Private Enterprise Project was formed, a conservative coalition comprised of organizations such as the Tea Party Patriots and the Washington State Farm Bureau. Together, they created a plan to educate voters and ensure Republican victories in their key swing districts. The plan was simple: educate, motivate, activate.
The first phase was educate. We educated volunteers and leaders across the state and then undertook the element to motivate, where we are educating and motivating at the door to door, talking to people about the races, about the issues in a nonpartisan, informative way. The third phase is activate, make sure they vote. We've identified thousands and thousands of conservative voters. Now our mission is to get them to the polls, make sure they vote.
The Washington Patriots understood it would take more manpower to ensure their ground game was effective.
When the grassroots local coordinators developed a plan and they presented it to us, we did everything we could to make that plan successful for them. Some of the things that we did were just networking and introducing them to other people and other groups and coalitions so that they could get the message out further. And then when we were able to bring volunteers in, we did what we could with that as well.
Tea Party Patriots flew in activists from around the country to help the project put their plan into action, which in turn motivated conservative activists in the state to help get out the vote.
We went out door to door talking with Washingtonians about the situation in their state regarding taxes and charter schools, and just the whole line of things that were affecting Washingtonians.
When you're face to face with somebody, and especially in a place like Seattle, you know, we were walking in the rain and wind. It's a little harder to slam a door on somebody when, you know, they're going through all this effort to talk to you. The blueprint model that they used, the way that we mapped out the districts and targeted those areas were very effective.
They inspired the local volunteers. Our number of volunteers at the local level has doubled because these folks.
But that also then lit the fire in the GOP, and that really got everyone excited and turning out.
With this extra push, the private enterprise project touched over 200,000 households to gather crucial information and make direct contact with voters in order to turn swing districts red. Voters were targeted by breaking Washington down into voting districts to determine where they needed to educate citizens and get out the vote. Door-to-door surveys gathered pertinent information on who was most likely to vote conservatively. Those voters were targeted for get-out-the-vote efforts. On election night, the Washington Patriots waited in anticipation to see if their hard work would pay off.
You know, tonight is kind of the culmination of an effort that's gone on for 2 years. We've never done this much effort. The conservatives have never come at it this hard before.
Barry, that number, 37%, that is huge.
Our project prevailed. We were able to flip seats and take seats in Olympia in both the House and the Senate.
Lawmakers could be in for a wild ride this year in Olympia. On the first day of the session, new faces and a transfer of power are shaking up the legislature.
Of the 8 House districts that were targeted, conservatives won 5 seats. In the Senate, the net gain was 1 seat. In addition to these victories, the Patriots' hard work helped to set up an unprecedented governing coalition in the Senate.
The Republicans say they have a philosophical majority after getting 2 Democrats to switch teams.
The public out there is hungry for us to come together, to work together in a collaborative manner, and that's exactly what this coalition is trying to accomplish.
That coalition now controls the state Senate in Washington. When you look at President Obama's massive campaign that he has, it seems like that's insurmountable and there's no way we can compete with it. But the fact of the matter is the people who are involved in the Tea Party movement, together, we can beat it. We can make a difference. And Washington State proves that.
The Washington Farm Bureau, the Tea Party Patriots working together formed a coalition. Without that energy, without that funding, without that fly-in volunteer involvement, without that in-state volunteer involvement from Tea Party Patriots, this would have gone nowhere. We are ready today to go into another state and sit down with them and tell them what we've done and lay out the steps and help them do it in their state as well.
We proved it can be done. We're emboldened. The Tea Party movement is excited and emboldened, and there's confidence.
If we can do this here, we can do it anywhere.
When the Washington coordinators came to me with this plan, it seemed daunting and virtually impossible. Yet because of their dedication, generous support from donors, and volunteer time commitments, the Washington State Plan worked. This is what Patriots are capable of doing. With your help, we can continue this success. We have a plan, but it won't work without your financial support. Please consider making a generous donation to build the ground game, develop our organization, and communicate our core values. Together, we will have victory.